the equipping that I mentioned for the Army, right? The training and the equipping is a huge deal. It's a huge deal. And I feel like part of my responsibility as a musician, playing the role in the body of a musician, feeling the call to be a musician, just in the fact that I really like it, and I feel such a knack for this. You know, that quote from the Runner movie, I feel God's pleasure in me when I run. Chariots of Fire, right? Yeah. I feel that way about playing it, you know, so I feel this stewardship element to equipping myself, right? What I'm talking about is practicing. And I just want to share this about practicing as a philosophy that I have, okay? I think that something that could be done on the instrument is either impossible, right? Impossible. Or it should be easy, all right? And what I mean by that is you practice it until it is easy, okay? You work on it. You hammer away at it until it's easy. Not just possible, not just an option, but easy, right? Because I want to use this instrument to speak, right? And not just speak into the air and everything we're talking about. I want to communicate I want to push those buttons emotionally, communicate to the congregation, worship the Lord in a way that isn't hindered at all by my equipment, right? And one of the things that really hinders my equipment is feeling intimidated by something that I want to play, okay? Difficulty-wise. I don't think difficulty exists. I think difficulty is a mirage for unfamiliarity, all right? I think unfamiliarity is the issue because it's either possible or it's impossible. And then difficulty isn't the question, right? If it's impossible, it's not too difficult, it's just not possible, right? You don't talk about slam dunking on a 20-foot hoop as too difficult to do. You just say, no, it can't be done, right? As far as playing stuff on the instrument, we all know where the limits are for a person, for a human being. I'm not going to be able to go with one hand really loudly. Maybe I can fake that and kind of do this little trick where I can go with one hand and make it kind of sound like that, but it's quiet or whatever, and blah, blah, blah. The point is, it's either possible or it's impossible. And if it's possible, I want it to be easy. Because that way, the difficulty of the issue doesn't affect my decision-making, right? I don't say to myself, it would be really great if I could play this right now, but that's hard for me to do, so I'm not going to do it, okay? So my practicing regimen, my practicing habits are basically just identifying the things in my playing that I'd like to be able to do, but am intimidated to do, and just hammering away at them until I own them, right? Not just can do it, but just kill it. Because then, when it's time to do it in the moment, I trust myself. You know, I'm like, yeah, time to do this thing. Done that thing so many times in the practice room, it's going to be not a problem. As opposed to entering this frame of mind where I'm like, all right, hope this works. You know, every now and then my students will come in and they'll be showing me something that we worked on that week that they were supposed to practice, and they won't be doing it very well, and they'll say, I was doing it at home. Right? And that's like a, see? It's okay, because I did it by myself at home after warming up for 45 minutes with nobody watching me. So I can do it. It's like, sure, but that's not the issue. The issue is, can you do it now? Right? Nobody cares about the score you got that one game of golf that you played by yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to be able to do it when it counts. And you're just dramatically increasing the likelihood that you will be able to do it when it counts if your relationship to it is one of easy. Like you're just not worried. Because I've worked on it enough, right? So practicing to me is a huge issue. I don't want to spend the front half of the clinic talking just about mental things and then let you think that that's the only thing that matters is your mind. It's the most important part, but it's so important to also have the facility, right? The general is like, troops, if we do this, we win. I play Risk all the time. You guys play Risk ever, right? I'm thinking like if I do this right now, like game over. Like tide is not stoppable, and all I can roll are 2s. And I'm like, no, right? If I could just roll some 5s and 6s, this game would be done, and I can't do it, right? I mean, that's a luck issue. It's not a luck issue with this, right? If you can't roll 5s and 6s, it's your fault because you didn't prepare enough, right? Now, I mean, this brings us right back around to the question of should you be trying to do that anyways? Right? There's a bunch of stuff that I don't practice. I mean, I'm intimidated to try and do them, but I don't ever practice them because I never find a need for them. In reality, in the not the drum community, the music world, I never find myself wanting to go with one hand really loudly. So I don't work on that, right? Never mind that it's impossible. Maybe double kick pedal is a great example, right? What does the double kick pedal give you that a single kick pedal doesn't? With a single kick pedal, I can do 2 notes pretty fast, right? Or I can do a bunch of notes medium fast. I just can't do more than 2 notes really fast. That's what practicing the double pedal gives me. More than 2 notes really fast. When do I want that? If I'm not in a hardcore band where, you know, the aesthetic of a hardcore band has that in it. It's useful in that setting. I'm not in any of those bands. I'm probably not going to get hired in any of those contexts because those contexts don't hire freelance players. They're just bands, right? Probably not going to get any gigs there. It's probably not going to serve the body of Christ for me to play that way on Sunday morning. So I don't practice it. Okay, so I'm not trying to say that everything that's possible for a drummer to do, I can do and it's easy. What I'm saying is that everything that I've ever seen to be fruitful in playing music, I practice until it's easy. That's the main thing I wanted to get across. Easy. Practice until it's easy. It takes about 40% additional practice, not 10%, right? 90% will get me so that I can do it. Another 10% will make it easy. That's not true. Okay? If you get it so you can do it, you're really just over halfway, only halfway to doing it easy. It's almost the same amount of work to get it from I can do this to easy, right? It's a huge part of being a musician and being a good steward of that freaking huge sword that you're swinging. Last thing I want to say, specifically for drummers, is the role of rudiments. All right? Rudiments are the things that we play that are basically foundational movements, sticking patterns to just the instrument as a whole, right? The equivalent would be like scales on a piano, stuff like that. The thing to make sure you understand about rudiments is that if anything is going to be ingrained and second nature, it should be the rudiment. Because when something is ingrained, when something is only second nature, when something is just autopiloted, it's so part of you, that you don't have to think about it. I've got this phrase I use with my students called the mental dollar, all right? And it's basically you've got a dollar, so to speak, to think with when you're playing. Okay, your brain's got a dollar's worth of capacity to focus on. And there are certain things that, regardless of whether or not you want them to, they will take some of your dollar. Like being nervous. Being nervous will cost like 20 cents. And listening in the moment, following the worship leader in case there's going to be an audible, somebody calls an audible, or just kind of being present in the moment, that costs about 30 cents. Remembering what part comes next, all these things cost something. And you don't have anything left in your budget, as far as I'm concerned, for rudiments, for rudimentary issues. Those things should cost you nothing. The same way that blinking and breathing, when you speak, you're never thinking about how you move your lips in order to articulate and enunciate certain sounds, right? The sound M is my lips touching together, but the sound V is my bottom lip and my top teeth, right? But S is just both my teeth. Right? I mean, nobody thinks about that crap. Nobody. There's no time. That's why you don't think about it, because there's no time. What are you thinking about while you're talking? The message you want to send. You're thinking about the conversation. You're evaluating, man, what contribution can I make to this conversation? How can I get my point across? There's no time to think about enunciation. That's why speech impediments are such an impediment. Because you got to think about that if you're trying to overcome it or something, right? You get in working with a speech therapist, and they're like, every time you say an S, you got to think about it. Oh, that's no fun. I don't want to think about that. Okay, rudiments are that way. There's no time to think about rudiments while you're playing. No time. So if, like I said before, you practice something until you can do it versus practicing until it's easy, if anything gets catapulted to the easy category in your practicing regimen, it should be rudiments. Because they're useful. You're going to use them a lot, but not cognitively. You don't intentionally play a paradiddle. If you do, it sounds dumb, right? Like this fill is a dumb fill. I'm sorry, that doesn't sound good. But in this moment, okay, there I just played a paradiddle, but I didn't think about it that way. I'm not saying to myself, time for a single paradiddle, right? Because there's just no time for that. Instead, my ear it suggests something, my mind kind of evaluates whether it's a good idea, and then I execute the idea, and it's all based on the idea and the contribution to the music of the moment. And at no point does my body say, oh, okay, that idea is going to require that we do a triple flam. So let's go into triple flam mode, right? I do this thing with my students that my teacher did with me, where all the paradiddles, single, double, triple, paradiddle, diddle, I make them spell words while they're playing them, right? Paradiddle, paradiddle. Like, all right, spell encyclopedia. They're like E-N-C-Y-C, and the paradiddle's still going, and what they're proving is that they don't have to think about it, right? Because, most people can spell encyclopedia, or maybe an easier word, right? Like just symbol or something. Yeah, mom. Right? I try to make the word somewhat difficult. So that you gotta use your mind. The mind can't multitask, remember? That's my theory. It just puts things on autopilot. So the mind says to the rudiment, you gotta just keep going. I gotta go do something else right now. I gotta visualize the word encyclopedia, and I gotta start listing off the letters that form that word. And if the rudiment stops as soon as they start spelling, then it's not internalized, right? All right, keep hitting it. Just mindless repetition stuff that will make it there, get it there. Set the baking timer on your floor tom, hit it on 10 minutes, and just play the single paradiddle for 10 minutes. Right about minute 6, you start daydreaming. Because your brain doesn't have a very good attention span, I don't think. It wants to put things on autopilot. It's looking for the opportunity to put something on autopilot. So when you do it over and over and over and over again, the paradiddle, pretty soon your brain's like, I think we got this. I just want to daydream right now. Yeah, I just want to say rudiments, as far as equipping yourself with practice rudiments, but practice them above and beyond just the ability to do them. Practice them to the point that they're totally internalized, and then you never need to spend any of your mental dollar on them again. Spend your dollar on more important stuff.